Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me on the Slice of Healthcare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor. Joining me today is the CEO of ProJenX, Stan Abel. Stan, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Jared. Thanks for having me on.
I'm excited to have you here today. I think we should dive right into it. I would love you to tell the audience a little bit about your background, and then we'll go into ProJenX.
No, thank you. I've been in the biotech pharma industry for going on 25 years. I started at Eli Lilly in corporate finance, and then after about 5 years, went to the Bay Area and then started my career in small venture capital funded biotech. And over a 10 plus year period, was fortunate and blessed to have been involved with and building and selling three biotech companies. And then the last 10 years or so, I was the CEO of a company called therapeutics, and have been involved and still involved in that company as a board member and an investor. And I was actually thinking about taking a role at a venture capital group as being an investor or an executive in residence, just helping them evaluate investor opportunity or investment opportunities, et cetera. And that's when I was introduced to the team at ProJenX. I mean, the co-founders at Columbia University and Project ALS, and was really moved by what they'd accomplished over the last 20 plus years of research, and was excited to join the company about 9 months ago.
And for, a lot of our audience, I feel like ALS, when those viral videos, came out a few years back, right? The Ice Bucket Challenge, it brought a lot of awareness to ALS, more so than the general public was aware of at the time.
Yeah.
And then even like TV shows were talking about ALS, like characters would have ALS in the video. I was telling you we had a family friend that had ALS.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit before we go into the ProJenX overview, why this is such a difficult, a difficult thing to address, and why it's been a process to, even get to where ProJenX is today?
Yeah, I mean, ALS, as you know from your comments, is a devastating neurological disease. It's not clear what causes ALS. There are about 10% or so of ALS patients have a known genetic mutation that causes the disease, but about 90% are referred to as sporadic ALS, and there is really no known specific genetic mutation that's causing the disease. But once symptoms, from the onset of symptoms, it's a steady decline in muscular function, and typically, within 2 to 5 years, people will lose their ability to walk and talk, and ultimately, will likely die of respiratory failure. So it's and then while that's happening, most patients, the vast majority of patients, retain all of their cognitive function. So they're very well aware of what's happening to them, and I think it's an incredibly frightening disease. And currently, there's three products that have been approved for the treatment of ALS. One just was approved in the fall, but the benefits that these drugs offer are very modest. So, unfortunately, the prognosis of the disease is still, pretty dire.
Yeah, it's a sad thing, but I've also heard of ALS referred to by some as almost in its current state, right? Like it's sad to say, but like a death sentence. Like if you have it, you will decline pretty rapidly. And as you said, one of the worst things about it is you're kind of a prisoner in your own body. You're
Yeah.
well aware of everything that's happening. It's horrible. We'll take us to now ProJenX. Give us an overview of the company. You gave us your background, which really ties in well with, I think, what really interests you in wanting to join the company as CEO. But give us an overview. Your current lead candidate, and tell us,
Mhm.
all about ProJenX.
So ProJenX, we're a relatively young company. It was officially or formally founded a little over a year ago. And ProJenX is really an ALS company. It was. We'll talk about the science and the background of what led to ProJenX, but we have a lead compound that's currently in phase 1 clinical trials, and we're excited about Prosetin, is the name of the compound or the name of the drug candidate. And we're really encouraged by the progress we're making out of the gate. And if we continue um, you know, uh, to continue to make that progress, we'll actually start a phase 2, 3 potential registration trial by the end of this year. So ALS, I mean, it is still an orphan indication. There's about 30,000 patients in the United States. So that provides us the opportunity to have an accelerated development pathway where we can potentially submit an NDA filing to FDA after one study. And most of the time, it takes at least two confirmatory phase 3 studies to file an NDA. But because we're an orphan indication, we can actually do that and hopefully truncate the time it takes us to get the drug to market.
And you were talking a little bit about the kind of the current ALS drug landscape. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And I guess ProJenX's place within that therapeutic landscape.
Yes, the landscape is evolving in a positive way. There's a lot of research now going into ALS. There are a number of drug candidates in clinical development, and a lot of that has been facilitated by the advances in drug screening platforms, which our team and our founders at Columbia were pioneers in, and that's really allowed facilitated more drug candidates to actually be taken into ALS clinical trials. So I think the landscape is encouraging. There's still a lot of work to be done, and I think we're still a number of years away from having solutions that really significantly modify or slow the disease. But the landscape is encouraging, and while I mentioned the background of that research, I thought I'd take the opportunity now to talk about the founders of ProJenX because they really were pioneers in that research. Project ALS is one of our co-founding. It's a co-founding organization. They were they're a non-for-profit organization that was started in the late '90s by three sisters, Jennifer, Valerie, and Meredith Estes, when Jennifer was diagnosed with ALS at the age of 35. And Jennifer received the diagnosis, and the message was very much like you just described that okay, there's really nothing we can do. There's really no viable treatment options. So you're on your own, more or less. And they found that answer unacceptable and recognized that there was a need to focus research on ALS drug screening and ALS drug development. And they started looking for researchers in the field that were doing exciting and interesting research that could help accelerate drug development in ALS. They met our founders at Columbia University, specifically Dr. Henrik Victorly, or Professor Henrik Victorly, who's a stem cell biologist, and with the funding support from Project ALS, Henrik developed the first fully functioning motor neurons from stem cells. And over a period of time, the technology evolved. Henrik was able to basically scale up the motor neuron that were derived from stem cells and create screening models so that one, we could understand why ALS motor neurons died, and then secondarily screen for drugs that could rescue those motor neurons. And that was all done and led by Henrik and his group with support from Project ALS. And then as that research continued to advance, they partnered with the chemistry group at Columbia University, and then they actually synthesized compounds that would be specifically able to rescue motor neurons in ALS patient motor neurons. And that's the entire background of the company. In fact, ProJenX, the JEN in ProJenX is actually named after Jennifer Estes. So we carry that passion and the effort that's been unfolded over 20 years, and you can really feel that in the culture. It's a small company, but we have a group of very dedicated people that are working on Prosetin and advancing it, and it's certainly we recognize the importance of our mission every day, and that is to try to get a drug to ALS, people living with ALS, that can actually help slow the progression of the disease and improve their lives.
Let's talk through some of those milestones, as it relates to the company, and then also your lead candidate. You mentioned a few of the things, right? Because of the orphan status, that you can move a little bit faster. But talk us through some of these key milestones that you're really looking forward to hitting, so that you can continue to move forward.
Yeah, a lot of the groundbreaking work that resulted in Prosetin and then the formation of the company ProJenX, was critically important, and it allowed really for the first time, drug candidates to be selected that were specifically able to rescue motor neurons in ALS disease models. So that's a new um, uh, platform that basically has not been available until the research that our group has done. So now that we have synthesized lead compounds, then the next sort of big area of challenging work was that our team led was the getting the compound with not getting the IND on file so that we could advance the program into clinical trials. So now that we're in phase one, things are going well. We are going to enroll ALS patient cohorts in that phase one coming up later this year. And then we're really excited about the transition to the potential registration trial. And that is a larger clinical trial, about 250 patients, where we could enroll, not only in the United States, but outside of the United States, and hopefully rapidly complete that trial so that we could have a drug that we could submit to the FDA for potential one study approvability. So having a drug in an orphan indication, things move very quickly because of that. So what is normally a 7, 8, 9 year process in clinical development, this is cut in half. So it's been really exciting to advance this compound, and every step along the way, things just sort of unfold more quickly because you've got your eye on a potential NDA filing, 3 or 4 years sooner than what you otherwise might expect.
There's so much, Stan, for you to be excited about with what you're working on in this company. If you had to just give us a few pieces that you're really excited about as we head into 2023 and beyond, right? We're in 2023. Can you share those with us, with our audience?
Just being a part of this effort, like I mentioned, I'm a newcomer. I've been with the company for 9 months, and I've been very blessed in my biotech career to have been involved with some exciting companies and some exciting exits and acquisitions and so on and so forth. But the mission here in ALS is just it's really moving, and to see us advance this drug candidate and get be within here another couple of months from being able to dose people living with ALS, I think is really exciting for me and incredibly exciting for the team. For our co-founders from Project ALS and from Columbia University. I mean, it's been a labor of love for them for over 20 years. So I feel very honored and privileged to be leading the company. And we're raising money right now to put us in a position to continue to advance the compound rapidly. So it's going to be a year, hopefully, of a lot of exciting events for us. Not only moving Prosetin along, but raising money, building the company, and really, making a significant advancement, moving this drug forward for patients.
Well, I'm very excited for you and the team and what you're doing. It's there's very few businesses out there, right, where you can focus in on something so impactful.
Absolutely.
You're definitely it's I applaud what you and your team are doing, and I'm really excited for what the future holds, and I hope we can have you come back on again,
We would
Stan,
love
to
to.
continue to
I'm
tell your
happy.
story.
Yeah, happy to come back and update you anytime. I mean, it is going to be an exciting year, so we will definitely stay in touch.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I wish you and the team the best of luck, and can't wait for some updates.
All right. Thank you, Jared. Appreciate it.